I just felt every Cincinnatian needs to read this book. I started reading the book out loud and posting them as chapters on my YouTube channel. Then I decided to get people to champion one chapter. No, you don't have to read the whole book. Just read one chapter, just one. But I felt, okay, we need something more. I've read the book, it's on YouTube. I've got chapter champions. They're bringing life to this book. What about art?
I'm very happy to say that part of this artistic response, there are 14 poets and 40 visual artists who have responded, and 2 performer groups. Thank you is, of course, to Dr. Taylor and to all the authors who have really produced this book and put us in touch with our reality, with our history. Because it's so important for us, and as you will see when you'll be hearing the poets and when you will see the artwork, how much it really resonates currently with what we're going through.
Race and the City is the story of how Cincinnati's racist city-building process produced neighborhoods and created situations that constrained the life chances of Black Cincinnati as it moved across time and space. This book grew out of the belief that society is too complex for deciphering by the lone researcher. It requires a team of scholars. In the struggle for advancement, Black-centered civil rights, and the battle against discrimination and segregation, however, they never effectively attacked the market forces that continually trapped them in communities where they paid exorbitant prices for substandard housing units. Moreover, Black Cincinnati could never dismantle the racist labor market that kept him locked in the city's economic basement. Thus, over 150 years, from 1820 to 1970, everything changed. And everything remained the same. Thank you.
So why did I write this? Why did I get involved in this work? And I think it's a combination of things. I grew up at the height of the Civil Rights Movement. I decided that if I was going to change the world, I mean, who wouldn't want to change the world? I should probably do some, careful study. So I went back to graduate school, and in one of the first graduate classes I had, the man who became my mentor, he wanted us to do a real research. And I thought, okay, I'm going to look at a section of South Crescent Avenue where I had moved. I lived in a 1896 Victorian mansion, and I looked around and my neighbors were all Black. And there were a bunch of mansions. And I was like, I wonder what happened. And then Zane said, well, why don't you write a master's thesis about this? But what I have to say about today's event is I'm very humbled. By the work of these artists who have put a human face on this book.
The law is a boundary. Black laws walling out Black voices. Yet walls surround white suburbia and keep in fear and privilege. Negroes, they have the tenements as their place to scavenge for hope. The highway is a boundary. pushing aside where folks dwell and build community. White roads shatter neighborhoods where black human beings make life. Then black folks scattering, them gone, is all that really counts. The mind finds boundaries to wall in all the delusions that make racism invisible in every visible way. Racism, wearing every mask racism can invent. How is black skin so impenetrable? Couldn't see that humans were inside.
The worst of whites propelled Johnny to confront his identity. The contradictions, white and black, were in his veins, many whites in his life. But the whites who joined mobs to eradicate blacks, that shook him to the core. He wished for skin of midnight darkness to erase evidence of white. At 13, John left Cincinnati with a black identity. By 14, he was studying theology at Auburn, traveled to Ohio by horse and buggy to black towns to persuade residents to open schools where none existed, denied admission to law school, yet found ways to pass the bar exam. First Ohio black to establish a law firm, fought anti-black codes. He helped to recruit Ohio's 1st Regiment of all-black soldiers, first black elected to represent Virginia in U.S. Congress, college president, the dean of Howard's Law School, envoy to Haiti, great uncle of the world-renowned poet Langston Hughes.
John Mercer Langston saw how African Americans were treated during the Great Depression and through voter suppression. It made him forget the brief economic boom where black businesses bloomed. The truth is, we are laborers and builders of a house, but unable to come into the room. John Mercer Langston was a symbol of hope, just like the Statue of Liberty is a symbol of freedom, universally known from sea to sea. Systemic racism is a hidden statue. We don't fight hard enough to take down. We bow instead of taking a knee. Systemic racism is a prison that has no borders you can cross over to be free. Still today, there's no free countries or states when oppression becomes the universal law. There's no freedom when racism and discrimination has made the world a free-for-all.
I lead the women, straight-backed, out of the hall. The bang of the gavel echoing in our ears as we huddle in the hallway, excited that we've spoken, stood up for ourselves, wait breathless to hear how our husbands will react, how they'll likely consider they'll have to prepare the meeting rooms themselves now. They'll have to set the tables, fold the programs, press the lemons into lemonade, bake the pies, and stand over sinks, scrubbing the dishes and silver into the night, if their wives walk away from their husbands' refusal to give us the voice.
In those days, we were all very separated, so much so that a we almost never existed. Trapped in the burrows of our own lives, occupation, shade, family structure, and all the other words I looked up in the thesaurus, ways for them to define and separate us, like cuts of meat, incarnate in the names which I'd placed so much worth in. We were not afforded the intimacy of proximity, nor the milieu of access to each other that must be necessary for building this tower that so many people call community.
My son Danny found a clipping that my mother-in-law, his grandmother, had in her house, and it showed her and my father-in-law, who is deceased, this was taken from a picture that was taken because they were the first, and it said Negro in the news article, Negroes to live in the neighborhood in Finneytown where they lived. I superimposed the lighter things with the images of people. These actually they're in luminescent paint come out. They're the spirits who came later, including my mother-in-law. And this is actually off of a photograph of my father-in-law when he was a little boy. My mother-in-law and I sat down one day and she was showing me all these family pictures and giving me lists of names. I took all the names, and the mortar is made out of all their names over and over again. My mother-in-law's brothers told, and my father-in-law's mother told these stories about how awful it was picking cotton. It was the bane of their existence. So the cotton's kind of overarching here. And then I put dandelions in. I do it with a lot of my art, but I think they're beautiful, but people weren't treated the same way. So I put the dandelions there, and then the butterflies are reminiscent of hope.
My people died for a long time because we were taught to be nothing. Standing in the face of judgment, this system has always looked down on us as if we were nothing. Ever since the first ghettos, people of no color have expected us to be ignorant and to know nothing. Jealousy of the true identities, they robbed us of our culture and took everything from us as a result and left us with nothing. Jealous, in the hood, they closed our recreations. Dead bodies on a hoopless basketball court, they said our youth shall shoot at nothing. Born with nothing but the color of our skin and branded with our slave masters' last names. When it comes to who we are, my people still know nothing. Destroying our families, it is not our fault that we are not used to having nothing.
This is my hands holding basically what one would call pocket change, I call breadcrumbs. And it was just basically just what I felt like we were receiving for generations and generations. Even now, like, you know, I feel like when it comes to economic opportunity, you know, a lot get held back from me, from people that I know from our race, but they use our faces a lot to apply for money and grants and stuff like that, and want to use my artwork and things. So I feel like I just always get the shorthand as a starving artist, and it also represents what it means to have lack of opportunity, you know. And so that, you know, it's just one simple color, and I had a vision with this. I wanted it to be something like you see the black fist everywhere, and it's standing for fighting, but it's also standing for love too. So I made my hands the shape of a heart, and I want our people to remember for love too as well, because we are a loving people.
After the Civil War, there was a big decline in formalized racism due to legal decisions plus reform. This didn't help blacks in Cincinnati one damn bit. Great job opportunities never happened. A sinister and informal system of discrimination and racism smoothly rolled into place. The South made Jim Crow laws. We in the North pretended enlightenment. 7. On December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks was arrested. Everyone knows that. In May of 1859, Sarah Fawcett in Cincinnati boarded a streetcar. The conductor refused to allow her to ride, and she was tossed off. Sarah Fawcett sued the streetcar company and won. from then on, black women were permitted to ride the streetcar. How many people in Cincinnati even know about Sarah Fawcett? Lying can be omission as well as commission.
Her hip bones with no ball joint, an arm without a hinge, swung open to everyone, when everyone meant everyone. A body is still glory without being glorified. Her body shook, out-mushroomed, far beyond her bones. A film built around her skin, blurred by scratches not caused by her own fingers. A circus of organs, commotion built alongside calm. Even her heartbeat was hard to find. Her division disguised as progress. Her brokenness disguised as her reformation. She was a collection of lines disguised as a city. But she is not her broken body. She is not a broken body.
I attempted to use modern photography to depict the time period of chapter 6. During the commercial city, the population was concentrated in the basin of the city. There were no segregated neighborhoods. Blacks and whites lived together. The blacks typically lived in the more dilapidated buildings. They might have lived in small enclaves, but they always had white neighbors. So this is what I thought maybe some of the housing might have looked like in the commercial city. After the Civil War, the advent of streetcars and inclines facilitated movement to the hill regions around the city. And typically the whites with the better jobs and the more income were able to move to the outlying areas.
So why am I here in the front of the room? It's an accident of birth, I guess. Okay, and yes, it's an accident of whiteness and the privilege that whiteness provides. But that's okay, see, because I ain't a racist. I mean, just look at me, will you? I don't own nothing to speak of. I don't call nobody the N-word, at least not out loud, and I sit at the back of the bus. So I cannot be racist. Or can I? Don't tell me, don't tell me. I know. Oh well, as my ma would say, live and learn, Mikey, live and learn. And oh, how I wish she'd added the other half. Live longer and learn again.
This is America, my people, precisely my hometown, the Queen City. Was it a riot? Was it an uprising? Or shall we call it righteous unrest? Sunday, June 11, 1967, police arrest a Black man for exercising his freedom of speech at the feet of a leering Lincoln cast in bronze with Lady Liberty kneeling to inscribe Honest Abe's second inaugural promise on the statue's pedestal, with malice toward none.
The Negro lives by himself, works by himself, suffers sick by himself in the colored ward.
Unlike me, Robinson had no illusions.
And when he dies, he is buried by himself, whether in a colored cemetery or the colored section of the Potter's Field.
That our people are one and the same.
The presumption is invariable against the Negro, and he is often arrested and sentenced where others,
I am the other,
would be excused. And the press gives undue publicity to Black weaknesses, foibles, and crimes, while seldom mentioning Black accomplishments and virtues.
We want to believe things are different now.
Because they lack news value.
When I moved up to Cincinnati in 1979, I didn't know there were neighborhoods where I wasn't supposed to live. I was proud of this.
In addition, he reported the almost universal tendency
Integration or gentrification.
to charge Black tenants higher rents.
My ignorance is inexcusable.
Avondale, 1959. Hawk means business tonight. Cold gusts cutting around these big old buildings, cutting through my thin coat as I wait in line to pay taxes for the schools my Georgia can't attend. For the trolley splashing mud in the shoes as it passes me by. Do the best I can by Georgia. She learns her little scripts, memory her numbers before I head out to walk to work. Hope for more than just this little freedom for my little girl, watching her father get up every morning. Free to look for work, long as he doesn't look too hard. And the three of us free to live where we please, long as we don't stray too far from the black bottom.
Whereas the war was not forgotten as segregated truths built democratic nations, when here it wasn't true. Whereas Detroit had just stopped burning, its embers floating round, when Cincinnati said they had to calm our city down. Whereas
they came together. The Chamber of Commerce, the CIO, B'nai B'rith, and the NAACP, Catholic Charities, and the Negro Welfare League. We shall work in harmony. So where is this elephant in the room?
Where my father worked had an annual picnic at Coney Island. It was an exciting time to go on rides, to eat carnival foods, and laugh in glee. I did not know that there were children who were not allowed this joy. I did not know to ask. Nobody told me. Later, when I worked there at the haunted house, marveling at the shrieks and screams of young black women venturing inside, I wondered why, but did not know to ask. Nobody told me that Coney Island had been segregated, then integrated, and these young women now had a safe place to release a little of the terror that had been haunting them.